Okay, we're going to begin with Mishpatim today. We're the sixth and seventh aliyot, and we really should call this converting to Judaism. This is what we're going to be talking about, the whole process. What does it take to convert to Judaism? And that's what these last aliyot are all about. Because if you remember, Mishpatim is really devoted to a list of mitzvot. That's what occupies certainly the most of the majority of the parsha. And then suddenly when you get to Shishi, it changes. The character of the parsha changes, because now instead of talking about mitzvot, we're going back to the narrative of the story of Revelation itself. And it picks up where we left off in Parshas Yisrael. So if you take a look at Shishi, let's just read a few psukim so we can get our feet wet. Perik Chav Gimel Pasuk Chav, page 436. Hinei anochi sholech malach liponecha lishmorcho badarech v'laviacho el hamakom asher hachinosi. So the Torah tells us, behold, I send an angel before you to protect you on the way and to bring you to the place that I've made ready. Hishamer panav u'shma b'kolo al tamer bo ki lo yisol lifi sh'achem ki shmi b'kirbo. Beware of him, hearken to his voice. Listen to this angel. Do not rebel against him, for he will not forgive you for your willful sin, for my name is within him. And then the pasuk says, "For my angel will go before you." Oh, I'm sorry. Pasuk Chaf base. I skipped. For if you hearken to his voice and carry out all that I shall speak, then I shall be the enemy of your enemies and persecute your persecutors. Pasuk Chaf Gimel. Ve'ayavti es oivecha v'tzarti es Yelech malachi lefanecha v'yacho el ha'amori v'achiti v'aprizi v'akanani v'achidi v'yebusi v'yichadetiv. And for my angel shall go before you and bring you to the Amorite, to the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Canaanite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, and I will annihilate them. Pasuk Chaf Dalet, lo sishtachav le'Eloheihem, v'lo avdeim v'lo sa'asem k'masem, ki ares te'aresem, v'shaber t'shaber matzevosam. Do not prostrate yourself to other gods. Do not worship them, and do not act according to their practices. Rather, you shall tear them apart, and you shall smash their pillars. You shall worship Hashem, your God, and he shall bless your bread and your water, and I shall remove illness from your midst. And then it goes on. And in the next chapter, in the next aliyah, we have the famous Na'aseh v'nishma, a declaration we're going to observe according to everything that you commanded us, and then we'll understand it. Okay, so let's begin understanding what's going on here. This is all a reaffirmation of our commitment to Judaism back to the Revelation story. Take a look at Pasuk Chaf Aleph, where we just read. He shomer mipanav shma b'kolo al tamer bo ki lo yisol lefish achem ki shmi b'kirbo. Beware of him. We're talking to God says, I'm going to send an angel now to lead you. And beware of him, hearken to his voice, do not rebel against him, for he will not forgive your willful sin. For my name is within him. What is Hashem saying? Hashem is saying, I'm sending an angel to guide you into Eretz Yisrael. That's the one who's going to guide you. I not, but I am going to send an angel to lead you into Eretz Yisrael. And this becomes, for Rabbi Soloveitchik, a major problem. What's the problem? That you have here a contradiction of what's going to happen next. Okay. Oh no, what happened? Okay, let's continue on. So this pasuk in pasuk Chav Gimel, pasuk Chav Aleph, is the opposite of what we're going to see in Parshas Kitisa. Parshas Kitisa, after the Egel Azov, Hashem informs us that Hashem, as a response to the Egel Azov, God informs Moshe and Bnei Yisrael that he himself is not going to enter Eretz Yisrael. He lets us know this was the ramification of the Egel Hazov. And this is our response. Well, when he informs us in Perek Lamed Gimel, Pasuk Dalet 33:4, in the next Parsha, you will see 33:4, we go nuts. We become very depressed over it. 33:4, page 502, right? 33:4. Vayishma ames hadavar hara hazeh vayisabalu v'lo shasu ish edyo elav. And we become depressed. We become mourners. The people heard this bad tiding and they became grief-stricken, and no one donned his jewelry. We became totally depressed on the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us, as a response to Egel Hazov, what's going to happen? God is not going to lead us himself into Eretz Yisrael. He's going to send a malach instead. And we go crazy. Both Bnei Yisrael and Moshe. They simply can't imagine that God is not going to be the one himself leading us into the promised land. But what's amazing is they were told this in this parsha way before that. And was there any negative response to this here? He says in what we just read, Hashem says, I'm sending you an angel. Don't rebel against him. I'm going to put my name into this angel, whatever that means, and we'll come back to that. But there is no mourning, there's no depression, and we accept it willingly. And we're told this before the Egel Hazov. When we're told it after the Egel Hazov, we become depressed and we become mourners. You see the problem, right? Here we're told before the Egel Hazov, that's exactly what's going to happen. Hashem is not leading us into Eretz Yisrael. He's sending an angel to be his agent. He's going to lead us in Eretz Yisrael. So how can we explain these contradictory stories? We should have been depressed right away. We should have been depressed in Parashat Mishpatim when Hashem says, by the way, I'm not going to lead you. I'm going to send an agent. The agent is going to be a malach. And listen to what the malach tells you, right? So how do we reconcile these two stories? Because they are contradicting each other. So the Rav first notes, what does it mean that the name of Hashem is going to be in the angel? What name of Hashem is going to be in the angel? So the Rav notes, quoting Rashi in Chazal, the Rav notes that which name of God has many names, has his manifestation in this world. It's Shakai. What does Shakai mean? Shakai means that the world runs by precise mathematical equations that God created when he created the world. Everything runs naturally and it runs perfectly. It runs according to the way God set the world up in the creation story. In such a world, the angel has no appreciation of the attribute of mercy or the concept of tshuva, because those are beyond nature. The natural means the attributes work according to exactly the way God set everything up. And there is no flexibility. That's what that means. Shakai means there's no flexibility. Everything is run according to the rules that God set in nature. And that's what Hashem is saying. The Malach is going to have my name of Shakai. The Malach is not going to have any give and take. He is not me. He is the Malach with Shakai. The attribute of mercy and forgiveness only was revealed after the golden calf. Before the golden calf, we did not have it. When we received the second Luchos, only then did we realize the midah of rachamim, the midah of mercy, of Hashem kel rachum. God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is only revealed to us when? After we get the second Luchos. When do we get the second Luchos? On Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, in the after Revelation, that Yom Kippur, remember, Moshe breaks the Luchos on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, on the 17th of Tammuz. Then, He goes up for 80 days, and the 80th day is Yom Kippur, and he gets the second luchos, and he comes back down, and then we are told, Hashem kel rachum v'chanun. God is the God who's going to represent the mercy, the midas harachamim, right? The merciful one. The Rav explains that our pasuk is describing the moment right after revelation at Sinai. Moshe thought at that moment, Bnei Yisrael had reached this pasuk right here in Mishpatim. This pasuk is describing right after revelation. Moshe thought that we were on such a level that we did not need midas harachamim because of the experience of revelation was so overwhelming that we wouldn't dare sin. Who would sin after revelation? We encountered HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you will, and God could judge us midas hadin according to the rules of judgment. We didn't need midas harachamim because we weren't going to sin, because we were going to be so transformed by the experience of revelation. That's why at this juncture, Moshe in Mishpatim, Moshe doesn't, you're going to send the malach, fine. The malach is going to be what? Shakai, midas hadin. Shakai is midas hadin, the attribute of judgment. Everything is according to the letter of the law. Everything follows the process that God set into motion and no flexibility whatsoever. That is exactly what happens right after revelation, which is this Parashat Mishpatim. It's right after revelation. What after revelation? Hashem tells us, I'm sending a malach with my name of Shakai. Okay, fine, everything good. There was no rebellion on our part. We didn't become depressed. We didn't become mourners. Why? Because we thought, Moshe thought, right after revelation, how would we react? There would be no need for midas harachamim, for the attribute of mercy. Is everybody following me? There would be no need. We're not going to sin. We're so overwhelmed by the revelation story. We're going to be good people, right? And so Moshe says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm sending a malach with shakai. What does that mean? With midas hadin into the world. We keep quiet, of course. Everything's going to be fine. All of this changes, of course, in next week's parsha when we have the Egel Hazov. Now Moshe realizes it didn't work out the way he thought it was going to work out. We did sin. We sinned pretty soon after revelation, and we sinned big time. We sinned with Egel Hazov, and then now Moshe realizes, and Klal Yisrael realizes, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu only rules the world with midas hadin, what's going to happen? We're not going to. It's not going to work. We're not going to be able to have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what was our response? We became very depressed. So we become depressed, according to the Rav, in Kisisa, because we realize it's a whole new realization. At the end of Parashat Mishpatim, he's describing right after revelation. Right after revelation, we thought, yeah, we could live with midas hadin. Sure, we're going to be good people. We're going to follow God's rules without rebelling at all. But, oh, that's not the way it worked, right? Parshas Kisisa tells us there was an Egel Hazov. So that's how the Rav explains and reconciles these two different reactions to being informed that a malach was going to take us in. In this parsha, oh yeah, that's fine. And next week parsha, we realize, if Shakai is going to be the ruling midah, the ruling attribute, what's going to happen? Everything's going to fall apart. We won't be able to survive. Got it? Okay. Take a look in Pasuk, Perek Chof Dalid, Pasuk Vav. Now this is all going to now. Let's take a look. Now, let's take a look at on page 440. Vel Moshe Amar Alei El Hashem Atov Aaron Nadav Avihu v'shivim miziknei Yisrael v'ishtachavsem meirachav. To Moses he said, "Go up to Hashem, Aaron Nadav and Avihu, and the 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall prostrate yourself from a distance." V'nigash Moshe levado El Hashem v'hem lo yigashu. And now Moshe is going to alone go up and approach Hashem, but they shall not approach. V'hem lo yigashu v'am lo ya'alu imo. And the nation itself, the people, shall not go with them. Vayavo Moshe v'yisaper la'am es kol divrei Hashem Peskol Mishpatim, Vayan Kol Ha'am Kol Echad, Vayamru Kol HaDvarim Asher Diber Hashem Na'aseh. Pasuk Gimel. What happens? Moshe comes and tells the people all the words of Hashem and all of the ordinances, and the entire people respond with one voice, and they say, Na'aseh, we will do, right? Pasuk Dalet. Vayichtov Moshe kol divrei Hashem vayashkem baboker vayivem mizbeach tachas sahor u'shtei mesvei matzeva l'shnei masor shiftei Hashem. Moshe wrote all the words of Hashem. He rose early in the morning. He built an altar at the foot of the mountain, 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent the youths of the children of Israel, and they brought up the elevation offerings, and they slaughtered bulls to Hashem at a feast, peace offerings to Hashem. I'm sorry, Pasuk Vav. Vayikach Moshe chatzi hadam vayosem ba'agonos v'chatzi hadam zarak al hamizbeach. And Moshe took half of the blood and placed it in the basins, and another half he threw upon the altar. Vayikach sefer habris vayikra b'oznei ha'am vayomro kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh v'nishma. And he took the book of the covenant, he read it in the earshot of the people, and they said, everything that Hashem has said we will do and we will obey. Vayikach Moshe es hadam vayizrok alam vayomer hinei dam habris asher karas asher imachem akol hadvarim elah. And now Moshe takes the blood and he throws it upon the people. He throws half on the mizbeach and half on the people. And behold, the blood of the covenant that Hashem sealed with you concerning all the matters. Vayal Moshe va'Aaron Nadav v'Avihu v'shivim zignei Yisrael. And then Moshe and Aaron and Nadav and Avihu, the 70 elders of Israel, ascended. Vayiru es Elokei Yisrael v'tachas raglav k'masei livnas hasapir u'ketzam hashamayim v'tohan. And we look up, right, and we see they saw the God of Israel, and under his feet was the likeness of a sapphire brickwork, and it was like the essence of the heaven in purity. And against the great men of the children of Israel, he did not stretch out his hand. They gazed at God, yet they ate and they drank. And then it continues on that they get the mitzvahs. Okay, let's go back now to Pasuk Vav. Vayikach Moshe chatzi hadam. And chatzi hadam zarak al hamizbeach v'chatzi hadam he's sprinkling on us. The Gemara in Krisus, Tes Amid Aleph, states that this narrative of revelation is the source of how we perform conversions to this very. We're seeing conversion at its essence. We are going to be converted now, right here. And this becomes the note of how we're going to, this becomes the model of how conversion is going to occur from a non-Jew to Judaism. They note here that Moshe converts, everybody's being converted now. This is the conversion of Klal Yisrael at Sinai. The conversion occurred even though we were all children of Avram, right? We're all children of Avram, yet we have to convert. Why do we have to convert? So the Rav explains that we are required conversion because whenever a new mitzvah is taught to Klal Yisrael, if you will, that new mitzvah creates a higher level of Kedusha, and what existed before doesn't exist now. So you have to convert to the new existence. Well, what happens? We can be committed to Judaism through Avram Avinu, but what Judaism? Was it the same Judaism as the Judaism now is taking place at Revelation? Not at all. At Revelation, we're getting the entire Torah, right? So we're going up in sanctity. So who we were before did not suffice. We had to reconvert, if you will, because at Revelation, each Jew is undergoing a whole new process of Kedusha because they're receiving the whole Torah now. We never have to convert ever again because there's never a new Torah beyond the Torah that was revealed at Sinai, correct? But at Sinai, what was occurring? A whole new Torah was being given to us that we didn't know beforehand. So we're at a new level of sanctity. We have to have a new conversion. So we're all converting. According to the Ramban, this was not the first conversion that Klal Yisrael actually underwent. Klal Yisrael, according to the Ramban, Nachmanides, we converted back in Egypt. before we left. Why? Because what happens back in Egypt on the night of Makas Bechoros? What happens? What do we do on Makas Bechoros? What do? We bring the first Karban Pesach. What's the halacha in Karban Pesach?
On the door.
Yeah, on the door.
And you also have to have
Who brings the Karban Pesach?
the Jews.
And what if the men have to
But they
be
do it.
and the men have to be circumcised, right? So only Jews can bring Karban Pesach. A non-Jew cannot bring a Karban Pesach, correct? So the Ramban says, whoa, 1 second. So therefore we had to have a conversion back, if you will, on the night of Pesach. On the night of Korban Pesach, we converted the Jew, or the day, whatever, right? That time, before we observed the first Korban Pesach, we had to make sure that everybody was Jewish. So there's a ritual. Men have to go through Milah, and they have to go to, and women have to go to mikveh, and men have to go to mikveh, right? They have to be converted. There's a ritual. According to the Ramban, that occurs as we're getting ready for the night of Exodus. That's what's happening. Yeah, the blood on the doorpost is just one element of the ritual that we're going to perform for Korban Pesach. But to be able to perform Korban Pesach, we have to be Jewish. So the Ramban says back in Egypt, we underwent a conversion, a ritual of, for men, Milah and Mikvah, for women, just Mikvah. Now at Sinai, since we have a whole new slew of mitzvos being given to us, what happens? We need a new conversion because we're not now at a new level of sanctity. We need a new conversion. Rashi on Perek Chav Daled Pasuk Aleph disagrees with the Ramban's approach. He has a disagreement because he claims the chronology of events was a little different. He suggests that our narrative here in Shemos took place actually on the 4th day of Sivan, while a revelation takes place 2 days later on the 6th day of Sivan. Rashi is arguing that we needed to convert before Sinai, not after Sinai. What's the machlokas between Rashi and the Ramban? When did this conversion take place? Everybody agrees that at Sinai, a conversion process took place. We all converted to Torah Judaism. When did it occur? The Ramban says we get the Torah and then we convert. Rashi says we convert. We do when I say conversion, I mean the ritual of conversion. When is mikvah occur? When for men does milah and mikvah occur? Right? Men are going to have 2 things. Women are going to have 1 thing. They're going to have mikvah. Women, men are going to have milah and mikvah. When does that occur? Rashi argues it has to occur before you get the Torah. The Ramban says, first you get the Torah and then you convert. Because the Ramban is arguing, were we Jewish? Yeah, we were Jewish. When was the first conversion? On the night of Pesach. That's, by the way, an interesting discussion at your Siddharim. Nobody thinks of this. On the night of Korban Pesach, we had to have converted. Because only the pasuk says in Orel, a non-circumcised cannot bring the Korban Pesach. Whoa, we weren't circumcised, so you had to circumcise everybody.
So circumcision was not being performed in Egypt.
No, and not only that, when's the next time when it's not going to be performed?
In Sinai.
In Sinai for 40 years, and Yoshua. 39 years later, Yoshua says the first thing he has to do on Erev Pesach, before the first Pesach in Israel, what does he have to do? You have to circumcise everybody. A massive conversion. I think about the Russians that, became suddenly interested in Judaism. They had, the Lubavitch were very busy doing circumcisions, right? Right, unbelievable, right? That's what was happening. Well, that was happening when, according to everybody says that happened, if you will, in Egypt on the night of Makas, or the day, whenever, right before Makas Bechoros. Got it? Now, 40 days later, after we left Egypt, we have a new conversion. What's the new conversion? Now Torah. Right? So Rashi argues you have to first convert and then you get the Torah. The Ramban says, no, you first get the Torah and then you convert. So which one is happening when? That's the machlokas. But how can the Ramban argue that conversion happened after Sinai when we needed to convert before we accepted the Torah? Rashi makes much more sense. First convert, and then are you committed to the Torah? Yeah, I'm committed. Okay, we'll do the ritual. So how do we understand the Ramban? So the Rav explains that according to the Ramban, the sanctity of Israel was not affected by the conversion ritual of Milah and mikvah. Rather, it was impacted by the Sinai experience itself. The sanctity of Israel is by the experience of revelation itself. At Sinai, they had learned to first what was obligated that we had to fulfill, and we accepted it. And then once we get presented what we have to observe, then we do the ritual of mikvah and of Milah. Obviously, if we did, it's only 40 days, so there's not going to be too many Milahs being done unless somebody was born in those 40 days, right? A child was born in those 40 days. But mikvah does have to occur. And what happens, the Torah tells us that we do go to the mikvah before Matan Torah. We do go to mikvah, right? Before Matan Torah. Today, the Rav notes that our conversion process has the acceptance of mitzvos and ritual simultaneously. You might not be aware of this, but what happens is you go to the mikveh, a man is going to have milah, but the completion of the ritual is the bezdin at the mikveh, a woman only at the mikveh. Now, what happens is you are ready to immerse, and they literally ask you, are you accepting the mitzvahs? You go under, and they say, do you accept the mitzvah? And you come up from the conversion and from the immersion, and they ask you, are you accepting all of the mitzvahs? It's simultaneously. In the Torah, it was sequential, right? Now it's simultaneously. We do it together at the same time. But this is where we learn that you have to do milah, tefillah, and acceptance of Torah, because this is the first conversion. This is the mass conversion of the Jewish people occurring at Matan Torah. Got it? Okay?
So wasn't that something that they didn't do Milah the whole time they were in Mitzrayim, slaves?
That's correct.
Wow.
They did not. They did not. They did not keep Milah. No.
They wouldn't let, because the Egyptians wouldn't let them, or they
No.
didn't know.
We're not told why.
Wow.
They didn't. They didn't keep. So they have to do Milah, that they have to do mikvah, and then they convert, right? And then they have to accept. So Vayikach Sefer Habris Vayikra Bosneim Vayomru Kol Asher Hashem Diber Naaseh Okay, sorry about this interruption. Something's happening with the Zoom connection here. Okay, the Rav notes that this pasuk teaches us a unique feature that not only applies to the conversion of Bnei Yisrael, but to all subsequent moments when we publicly read the Torah in the shul. We publicly read the Torah. Something fascinating has. Vayikach Sefer Habris Vayikra B'oznei ha'am, and he read the Sefer Habris into their ears. Words are not being taught here. Rather, what's happening? What is happening in this pasuk in pasuk Zion? They're being read, and do people understand? Not necessarily. They hear the Torah, but they don't necessarily know what they're hearing. That happens quite often in Kriyas HaTorah. People hear the Torah, but do they know what they're hearing? The Torah is emphasizing that hearing, opposed to study, is crucial all in its own. What this would mean is that if one hears the Torah out loud and he doesn't or she doesn't understand what they're hearing, you still perform a mitzvah. But what benefit, you may very well ask, is there a benefit of hearing the mitzvah, hearing the Torah without understanding what you're hearing? The answer is yes. There is an experience of just hearing the Torah that is uplifting in its own right. It impacts the soul in a way. In other words, sanctification of the individual and his spiritual elevation can be achieved just by hearing the words of the Torah, even without understanding. Quote unquote, the Rav. The fact that after this reading, the reader is not only wiser, does not negate its value. You might not be wiser, but did you hear the Kriya? Just hearing the words have an impact on the soul. That's what this pasuk is teaching us. Not necessarily did they understand, but they experienced Kriyas HaTorah. When you experience Kriyas HaTorah, this happens in shul all the time. Is there a value of just hearing the words? And the answer is yes. It's impacting the soul. Just the ears hear, that in itself is powerful. And then what did we say? We heard, and then we said, Kol asher diber na'aseh v'nishma. What's the difference of na'aseh v'nishma? What does na'aseh mean? Na'aseh implies unqualified obedience and submission to one's will. What does nishma mean? It means one is willing to study and be enlightened. Na'aseh, unqualified obedience. Nishma, now I will figure out what I am doing. The fact that we said na'aseh before nishma, the Talmud in Shabbos, Nun Hey Amid Aleph 55a, states that the angels burst into the Torah, the Gemara says, burst into a statement, and they said, what? Who divulged to Bnei Yisrael the secret that only we have? What does the Gemara say? This says, apparently, the Malachim were saying in the Gemara, only angels, only heavenly hosts are so close to divine presence that they do what they're told, even if they don't understand. Without hesitation, they do what they're told. Those are heavenly beings. They are never diverted by other considerations. You're told, that's the command, you do the command. Only heavenly hosts do that. If that's so, the Gemara says, when we said Naaseh, the heavenly angel said, they're us? They're acting like us? Usually, if I tell you to do something, what, you're just going to do obedient? Nobody's just obedient. We're human beings with intellects. And that means we weigh considerations. Does this make sense? What is he telling us? Does this make sense? Right? That's always, we're weighing pros and cons. But that's not what we said. What did we say? Naaseh, we will do obediently. Nishma, then we will weigh it afterwards. By placing Naaseh before Nishma, we accepted a lifestyle and a distinctive national destiny without first analyzing what it really meant, without analyzing the consequences, without doing human evaluation. But was that wise to do? Is that what we're all about? Is that the way we're wired? The Rav wants to know, isn't man known for his intellectual capability to analyze all propositions before acting? Don't we all weigh the pros and cons and everything? Isn't man different from all creatures by one feature? What is it? The intellect. We have an intellect. We have a brain. The animals in the forest don't have a brain. They don't have the capability of intellectually discerning pros and cons, right? We have the ability to deliberate and critically evaluate. Are you telling us that we're to put away our intellectual capabilities when it comes to obedience to Hashem? Shouldn't we act like human beings? We're saying, Nasa will be obedient. What happened to Nishma? And we're celebrating this fact that we said, Nasa, we're acting like angels. Angels don't debate. Angels do. Is that what we want from man? Truth is, it's a very important question. Why is it so? We celebrate Nasa v'nishma, don't we? But the Gemara tells us Nasa v'nishma. We said Nasa v'nishma. We will do, again, Nasa means what? Obedient without evaluation. Nishma means I'll evaluate post facto. Is that really what we're all about? The Rav is raising a very important question. Is this something to celebrate, that we're changing our human wiring? Our human wiring is to be nishma, intellectually motivated, stimulated, and acting according to our ability to evaluate life. You tell me to do something, I say, does that make sense? Or does it make sense? What are the consequences of me doing this? Right? That's nishma. Why is Naaseh Nishma so important, right? Undiscriminating commitment is something to celebrate. So why is this so important in Judaism? We celebrate it based on the Gemara, right? We do. Well, kids in school know, oh, there was not, we said Naaseh before Nishma. But think about it. It makes no sense. Humanly, it's the opposite of the way the human being is created. So the Rav answers that you have to understand a Kabbalistic concept. Okay? There are two ratzons, there are two wills that man has. One is called ratzon tachton, the lower practical will, and then there's ratzon elyon, the elevated will. The elevated will constitutes the singular endowment that distinguishes man from the rest of creation, the ratzon elyon. Ratzon elyon means above, tachton means below. Ratzon elyon makes decisions without first considering the intellect. Ratzon elyon is a divinely inspired way that human beings act. It's center of the spiritual personality. Again, it's the center of the spiritual personality. And what the Kabbalists say man's real identity is all about is Ratzon elyon. He does things because he realizes that this is the will of the Almighty. Ratzon tachton is pragmatic intellect. Pragmatic intellect, which weighs the pros and cons in all questions, and that's called tachton, below, right? Elyon, above, tachton, below. You weigh everything. You don't do things right away. You weigh everything. You weigh everything. That's Ratzon tachton. The Kabbalists say, why is it called Ratzon tachton? Because you're acting like, if you will, a typical human being. What's a typical human being? He weighs. He doesn't jump into things right away. He weighs things. For the Kabbalists, it was the Ratzon elyon that distinguishes man from the rest of creation, not the Ratzon tachton. The capability, it's the center of the spiritual personality that's capable of immediately accepting without acting by hindering himself via pros and cons of the human intellect. Okay? According to this approach, it views man as making major decisions in life spontaneously. Naaseh means a spontaneous acceptance, a sudden acceptance. It's dictated not by external considerations and pragmatic concerns, but it is a spontaneous response. I quote the Rav, decisions of faith, of marriage, choice of profession, solutions to financial problems, acts of military genius, and most pivotal resolutions in life are reached intuitively without addressing any inquiries to the intellect. We are suddenly struck by an incisive insight with a sense of direction. Later on, the practical intellect is called upon to justify the decision we made, to remove inconsistencies, and to plan implementation. True genius is spontaneous. That's Ratzon elyon. True genius is spontaneous. And then later, after you jump into it, then you decide, oh,
Then you justify it intellectually.
that's
You're
correct.
not going to analyze every part of it.
So the Rav is using a Kabbalistic concept. Ratzon elyon is the spontaneous response. Ratzon tachton is the pragmatic results of being a human being. Truth is that life, he says that life only, truth is that in life, only that what the Rav labeled second and third level decisions are reached after long consultations. He calls them second and third level decisions. Listen to the Rav. The intellect is inherently wary, slow moving, computing in terms of loss and profit, don't we? Right? Isn't that the way we work? To decide by reason is essentially to balance credits and debts, to weigh alternatives, and to measure consequences. That's not the way the Ratzon Elyon work.
Cost
Ratzon
benefit analysis.
What?
It's a cost benefit analysis.
That's Ratzon
Mhm.
Tachton, right? It is
Emotional.
not so emotional. It's intellectual. You analyze after when the great acts of life are spontaneous acts.
Did you say God inspired that?
Definitely.
Well, yeah.
Definitely, they are
Sure.
divinely inspired. But people listen to again decisions of faith, of marriage, choice of profession, solutions to big financial problems. People act on a military genius. Most the pivotal resolutions in life are reached intuitively without addressing any inquiries to the intellect. It is true. Great moments can. What do we say? Don't miss the opportunity, right? What's the expression? No, there were dead poets. The movie,
Dead Poet Society.
yeah, Dead Poet Society. He uses that Latin expression of grab the moment.
Grab the moment.
Grab the moment. What?
Seize the moment.
Seize the moment. And what's the Latin expression for it?
Carpe diem.
Thank you.
What is it?
Carpe diem. Carpe diem. Thank you. I was having a moment there. Carpe diem. What's carpe diem? Grab the moment. Grab the moment is Ratzon Elyon, not Ratzon Tachton. Carpe diem is if you miss carpe diem when you start weighing, oh, well, if I do it now, you contemplate and you know people like this, they overkill, they overthink. And what do they miss? They miss the opportunity at hand. Ratzon Elyon is that moment that God gives you. Grab it, worry about the consequences later, right? There's moments like that. Again, the intellect is inherently wary, slow moving, computing in terms of loss and profit. To decide by reason is essentially a balance and a credit and debts, right? You're balancing credits and debts to weigh alternatives and to measure consequences. The Ratzon Elyon works differently. It's intuitive, it's dynamic, it's aggressive, and it's passionate. You talked about emotion, I'll call it passionate. Decisions are radical in nature with Ratzon Elyon. Revolutionary. That's true. That's Ratzon Elyon. Decisive in nature are guided by Ratzon Elyon. These passionate moments that are revolutionary, these decisions change your life forever. And if you don't grab them right away, as they said in Dead Poet Society movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it, everybody in my family knows that's my favorite movie. I don't know, because I just think it's a brilliant insight in how to teach children. But if I was analyzing it religiously, I would use this language of the Rav. It's Ratzon Elyon that he is. Zichrono Livracha. What was his name? Robin Williams. Robin Williams, right? Right. He was a master actor. He just was. But he's talking about Ratzon Elyon to the kids. There are moments. Yes, there are moments for Ratzon Tachton. 100%.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
psychologists are saying that just the same thing. There's a great metaphor that the intellect is like a man sitting on an elephant and trying to steer the elephant.
Right.
The elephant
is marching on.
Right.
Right.
And I think it's Chip and Dan Heath.
Right. Man comprises both of these wills. We have Ratzon Elyon and Ratzon Tachton. Often they are in conflict with each other daily in our lives. They are in conflict with each other. Often they collide, Rabbi Soloveitchik notes, causing man to choose which identifies you. Who are you? Are you a Nasa Jew? Are you a Nishma Jew? Right? So what we have to do is first do the Ratzon Elyon and then the Ratzon Tachton. We must choose between our inner light, or should we respond to practical considerations? That's what we're constantly fighting, an inner light or practical considerations. And these conflicts we deal with daily. That's how the Rav understands the pasuk of Naaseh v'Nishma. It wasn't just a momentary point in history. Naaseh v'Nishma is who we are. We have this conflict of Naaseh versus Nishma. When we are guided by Ratzon Tachton, we live in a utilitarian and pragmatic world. Man only does that which offers him practical benefits when he's using Ratzon Tachton. Ratzon Tachton only takes the safe path, guided by only cold facts. I'm not moving until I know all of the decisions. Well, you miss carpe diem, right? Great genius is missed when if you're only going to write, it will take no chances. Ratzon Tachton takes no chances. By definition, therefore, it lacks an elevating vision and the capacity to do things boldly. If man aspires to greatness, he must approach life with Ratzon Elyon, right? The Rav explains by giving precedence to Ratzon Elyon does not imply you disparage your intellect. This is a very important point the Rav is making. It's not disparaging intellect. Judaism is a strong believer that man is bidden in the Torah to use his mind in order to achieve dominion in this world. We're intellectual beings, right? But with that said, the intellect must acknowledge its, and here's the Rav's brilliance, it must acknowledge its limitations. Mm-hmm. Our intellect must acknowledge our limitations. Man must accept the truth that without Ratzon Elyon motivating us, the Jew would not sustain his commitments to the demanding discipline of mitzvot in this world. He couldn't do it. You couldn't be, if you read the paper, you wouldn't be an observant Jew today. I mean, why would I be a Zionist?
Isn't that why it's discouraged conversion also, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm going to be Mesader Kedusha for one of the converts that Ruchama taught next month. Wow. I stand in awe. Many of you remember Rivka, Letty. And she's getting married, Baruch Hashem, to a lovely young man back in New Jersey. And that she asked me to be Mesader Kedushin for us. And Ruchama really is the one to be credited because she introduced her to Torah Judaism. But she came sincerely because of what? Ratzon Tachton or Ratzon Elyon? Ratzon Elyon. You can't become a ger. Oh, back to us. You can't convert to Judaism unless you're willing to say Naseh first. That you realize there's a carpe diem, Ratzon Elyon. Not some Tachton. We're not disparaging it. It's important, but it will come later. It will come later. And the truth is, I feel this way as I read the paper every day. Right. You can't be an observant Jew if you're just a Ratzon Tachton Jew. If you're just weighing the facts, it does not weigh in our favor. It just doesn't. It really doesn't. Today, not only today, all the time. I don't think there's anything different today than it was in the past. We're just confronting it now. Okay, but that's a whole different discussion. I saw today's my mother's shloshim.
Oh wow!
Yeah, my mother's shloshim. So this will get trimmed. In a few hours. This will be trimmed a little, But anyhow, it's my mother's shloshim today. So I was thinking about my mother, and I saw this in her life. She was a Ratzon Elyon Jew. She was. My mother became an observant Jew at the age of 14. How do you become a Jew? My mother was a brilliant woman who clearly was pragmatic in so many ways. My mother was a Ratzon Tachton Jew as well, but she was a Naseh and a Nishma. I know that her commitment to be an observant at the young teenage age of 14, cooking for herself, having her own pots and pans in my grandparents' home. How do you do that? You do that Ratzon Tachton? No, you don't do that Ratzon Tachton. You weigh it, it makes no sense. What I'm going to have to, if you were using Ratzon Tachton and you were my mother at 14, would you have cooked for yourself? No way. It's a Ratzon Elyon. She recounts in her memoirs that I was able to get her to write. She recounts that she went to Spanish-Portuguese synagogue. She lived in Manhattan on the West Side, and there was only one shul in the entire city of New York that had a free Talmud Torah and was Spanish-Portuguese because it was endowed by a family in the 19th century, the Polonese family. And the Polonese family gave money. Mr. Polonese gave money, and the Talmud Torah was called that. And
it said no child should be charged for learning Torah. An interesting idea. Ratzon Elyon, not Ratzon Tachton, right? And my mother went, it's a long story, but she went to Spanish Portuguese. She grew up in an Ashkenazic home, right? I mean, my grandparents were Americans, but anyhow, long story short, she went to Spanish Portuguese. She absorbed all of the Sephardic traditions. It was interesting at all. She also graduated valedictorian of the Talmud Torah, but that went without saying. And she became very close to Rabbi de Solopul. Rabbi Dr. de Solopul was the Rav of Spanish Portuguese, the famous Rav, but there was a Rabbi Cardoza. Rabbi Cardoza ran the Talmud Torah, and she became very close to Rabbi Cardoza. And she invited Rabbi Cardoza to her wedding, to my parents' wedding. Rabbi Cardoza couldn't come because Rabbi Cardoza had moved to Philadelphia to become a Rav of a shul, Spanish Portuguese shul in Philadelphia. He sends her, remember those telegrams? Well, my mother saved all of that. My mother saved everything. That's how she was able to really write a pretty authoritative memoirs, because it's her whole life and she's documenting this and that and that and that. And she writes that she goes to Spanish Portuguese because she asks the Malamed who's teaching her in the Talmud Torah in the conservative synagogue right near her home, where my grandparents were members when she was 12 and 13. She asks, is this the pronunciation of Hebrew that's going to be spoken in Israel? My mother was already becoming a real Tzioni, and she wanted to go to Eretz Israel, and they did try making Aliyah in 4950. But long story short, he says, no, you want to learn the Havara, the pronunciation of the way the Israelis are going to, there's only one school, and that's Spanish Portuguese. That's how she gets to Spanish Portuguese. Anyhow, she comes very close to Cardoza. And in lieu of his attending the wedding, he sends the telegram, and he writes to her. He says, I send you all of my brachos, and I stand in admiration of your courage. And my mother writes in her, she's quoting this telegram. My mother writes, courage? What courage did I have? This was my mother. Now, that's truly of reflecting her own humility, and my mother had a sincere humility, but she didn't think of herself as courageous. But he writes, you were a courageous young lady. She was. But you're courageous when? When you approach life via Ratzon Elyon. Ratzon Tachton is not courageous. And my mother was thinking I did it, Ratzon Tachton. My mother was wrong. She was motivated by Ratzon Elyon, because you can't explain my mother's life. And that's why I begged my mother, and she listened, to write her memoirs. She had a brilliant pen and she wrote it. So I have a book of 427 pages that I published for the family years ago. And now I'm rereading it. And I came across this whole story by her marriage about Cardoza. And I said, that's Ratzon Elyon. That's Ratzon, that's Naseh. Nishma is Ratzon Tachton. That's what the Rav understands. Brilliant understanding. Dayenu, if I just taught you that today. What is Naseh v'Nishma? Naseh v'Nishma, according to the Rav, is a Ratzon Elyon, Ratzon Tachton. Naseh, you do. Carpe diem. Grab a hold. Do. Be motivated. You become observant, right? You buy the pots and pans and you create look what you created. Generations from Jews. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. She has great-grandchildren that are from. I think about it. Her neshama is the Elyon. It just is. Yeah. I was very close to my mom, but I said at her levaya, I said, Mommy, 30 days ago, I said, Mommy, we were proud to be your children. We were proud of you. And I think of it in the Rav's terms, it was Ratzon Elyon. It was, what was my mother's motivation? Carpe diem. She grabbed the moment and she ran with it. Boy, did she run with it. Okay, let's finish up. What happens is he takes the blood. Now listen to this brilliant insight again from the Rav. He takes the blood and he sprinkles half the blood on the Mizbeach and half the blood on the people. Why does he do that? Because this was a revolution against the Egyptians. We were immersed in a culture that was the antithesis of Judaism. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to change us from Egyptian thinking religion, which is Avodah Zarah par excellence, right? If you will, to a monotheistic Torah Judaism. What is the Torah's message of Judaism? That we are partners with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu and us, we are partners, right? That is what it is. Half of the blood is on the Mizbeach. Who's the Mizbeach? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Half the blood is on you. Fuse them together, and you have a Jewish people. The last thing we thought of when we were coming out of Egypt is we could not imagine a Torah would create a direct relationship with God. That's not the way they perceived religion. Religion was a revolution. Both here and in Devarim, the Torah notes how fearful the people were at revelation. In Devarim, when we, by Parshas V'Eschanan, again it says people were afraid. They were afraid of what? That our encounter with the Borei Olam would kill us, would die. They had no comprehension that God wanted us to be partners with him. God wasn't going to kill us, just the opposite. By sprinkling the blood, we were being taught it's a divine perspective that HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs partners in this world to create an ethical society that the Torah has at its center. And that was a revolution against everything Egyptian society thought of. Egyptian society worshipped, right, idols. It didn't worship a God that was telling them, you're a partner with me in creating an ethical world. It was a direct relationship. And that's what happens here. Vayikach Moshe Adam, Vayisor. He does half on the Mizbeach and half on Dam Habris. What does he say in Pasuk Ches? Hine Dam Habris Asher Karas Hashem Imachem Al Kol Advarim Ha'eleh. What is that? The Rav notes that there were two moments that God made a covenant with Bnei Yisrael. The first was back in Perek Vav Pasuk Zayin, and that's in Parshas Va'era, when it states, and I will take you, I will take you to me as a people, and I will be God to you. The Rav calls that the covenant of fate. This is one of the famous philosophies of the Rav. This was a contribution of the Rav that was just, to this very day, always quoted. The Rav talks about two covenants that Jewish people experience. Covenant one is back right before Yetzias Mitzrayim. V'lokachti eschem li la'am. That's, he calls the covenant of fate. F-A-T-E. What's fate? We weren't asked if we agree or not. You're a member of the Jewish people. You never can. I'm sorry. There's no exit. There's no exit door. You're a member of the Jewish people. You can't break away. As the Rav says, even if a person achieves the pinnacle of social or political success, he still will not be able to free himself from the chains of isolation. His fate is you're a member of the Jewish people. You're going to be isolated. That was the lesson after October 7th. We thought we had allies that would stand with us. Then we realized the covenant of fate. We woke up to it. It was a rude awakening for many American Jews. Whoa, I have with my democratic, wonderful members of, right? We marched with them in their needs and our moments. They dumped on us big time. That is the covenant of fate. But there's a second covenant, and that happens at Sinai. The Lokachti Eschem is right before Yetzias Mitzrayim. The second is the covenant of destiny. The Rav calls the covenant of destiny because this covenant was created with our consent. This covenant is Naaseh v'Nishma. We agreed to be part of the Jewish journey. No Jew is left behind on this magnificent journey. The sprinkling of the dam on both the people and the Mizbeach is a reflection that this covenant is the one of destiny. So there's a covenant of fate, there's a covenant of destiny. That's what's happening here. Pasuk Yud. Vayiru es
Elokei Yisrael v'tachas raglov k'masei levinat hasapir u'che'etzam hashamayim latohar. Right? Vayiru. And the people saw, right? And they saw the God of Israel. The Rav notes that now, for the first time in this narrative, we talk about God as Elokei Yisrael. Not up until all of the story, all of the narrative of Revelation, you're never hearing Elokei Yisrael until now. The reason is that Yisrael reminds us of whom? Yaakov Avinu. When does he get the name of Yisrael? When he wrestled with the angel and he was victorious. And what does he say? I'm victorious against man and against God. Right? With my wrestling with man and with my wrestling with God, I'm victorious. It's a matchup with both man and God, and we are victorious. Here at Sinai, our relationship with God is Elokei Yisrael. Man is free to create a relationship with God. It reflects the close relationship we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which was a revolution in history, in religion. It was certainly the antithesis of what we were experiencing in Egypt. Then what happens in Pasuk Yud Aleph? Vayochlu vayishtu, and we eat and we drink. The covenant is celebrated with food and drink. Is that wrong? No, not at all. Jews do it. What do you mean Jews do it? Why? Why? Why do we do that?
Because we're physical.
Hashem gave us the food.
Because we bring spirituality into the physical world. That's why. Because at the end of the day, Judaism does not reject our humanity. Judaism, we use our humanity to spread our Judaism. We elevate. What does the bracha do to the food? It elevates it from a physical experience to a combined physical and spiritual experience. That's exactly what it does. I don't eat until I acknowledge Hashem, and then I thank Hashem after I eat. Interesting, the non-Jew only says grace before meal. We say grace after meal. Why? Because we realize we're not there. We're not human. Why do we eat? Do we live to eat, or do we eat to live? Grace teaches us we eat to live, right? We eat to live, and we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu after. What is the bracha rishona? The bracha rishona is permission to eat. The bracha achrona is the thank you. That the non-Jew is doing both before, right? He's doing grace before he eats. No, we say we have to get permission to eat. This is God's food. Okay, we eat, then we have to say thank you. Correct? Rabbi Sachs tells a story that he was in 10 Downing and they asked him to say grace. You know, the meal's ready to, I think it was under Prime Minister Major. And he says, Chief Rabbi, would you say grace? And he hadn't washed or anything. So he's yet. He does grace, they say grace. So he grabbed a hold of a grape in the middle of the table, and he said, Borei Priya eats, right? And then afterwards, he turns on his way out, he turns to the prime minister and he says, you're a more believing man than I am. The prime minister says, Rabbi, you're making fun of me? You're the chief rabbi. He says, I'll tell you. He says, Jews don't say grace until after we've eaten. We have to see the food that we eat. Then we can say thank you. You're willing to thank? You didn't know what was coming. You didn't know it was good, it was bad, it was going to be burnt, not burnt. You say grace. Jew says, no, show it to me. Show it to me. Then we say grace. That's what he writes. It's cute. It's a cute line. Anyhow, so we learned quite a bit in the philosophy of the revolution of Judaism as it seems to evolve from these psukim. Next week, we'll begin a few weeks in Megillah Esther. Okay?
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask something. I'm
Right.
thinking of what you
Yes.
said with regard to just the benefit of even just hearing a Kriyat
Kriyas HaTorah. Yeah.
even if you don't understand it. Would that be similar to davening in Hebrew versus in English?
Oh, that's an interesting question. There is,
Because
well,
there's a certain
davening is different.
vibe, even if you don't understand every word, but
Right.
like davening.
There's an element to that, but I would say 1 second. There's a difference between Kriyas HaTorah and Tefillah. Tefillah is your personal direct conversation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kriyas HaTorah is only Shmiya, right?
That's Hashem speaking
Yeah.
to us.
Yep. The Rav Kook quoted the following. Rav Kook says, in davening, we have two experiences. In davening, we talking to God and then God talking to us. We talk to God, that's tefillah. Kriyas HaTorah is God talking to us. So I wouldn't compare them. They're two different experiences.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Rabbi
Okay.
Buxton.
Rabbi,
Bye-bye.
Thank
I
you.
have a question for you, please.
Yes.
Rabbi, you said that when the men converted, they did, people did, I hear.
Mila
I know
and mikvah.
Exactly. The women did mikvah, the men did the Mila. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yes. Correct.
Right. I was going to ask you, how did the women convert? But then you said the word mikvah, of course.
Mikvah.
Exactly. Rabbi,
Okay.
this was the most beautiful, enlightening,
Thank you.
wonderful, knowledgeable shir.
Thank you.
Tell you, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day.
You too.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.